What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I'm bringing you a very spicy update to one of my favourite decks, and that is of course Thunder Dragon. Now, I've taken a different approach with this deck. I haven't gone down the pure Chaos route or even a Dragon Link aspect route of the deck. I've tried to focus it more around the Thunder Dragons themselves while also utilising a brand new card. I say a new card, we got it in Photon Hypernova, but it's the first time I'm actually using it, and that is Mental Tuna, which I think is actually an incredibly good card for this deck. And the way that I decided to approach this deck was try to make it as anti-meta as possible, which basically means taking away the graveyard or controlling it where at all possible. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. I'm just going to dive headfirst into the profile, show you exactly what we've got, and as always, explain why we've got it. So we're going to start off with OG Thunder Dragon. Now, unfortunately, this deck does run into Draw Unlock Bird very hard, which is why we tried to utilize other cards in the form of stuff like a main deck D-Shifter to take away our opponent's Draw Unlock Bird, as well as a Call by the Grave. Now, if you are massively worried about draw, you can include a card like Instant Fusion to get you into Millenniumize Restrict and play around it that way. But again, with this particular build like it, I've kind of made it more on a fun aspect, but also still being able to compete at a decent level while also catching your opponent off guard, because they will not be expecting half the cards you could be playing in this deck that will allow you to keep going and going and going. So triple original Thunder Dragon followed up by double raw, double dark, one form of Dragon Hawk, and then I am also playing two of the Dragon Matrix. Now this is actually quite useful in the deck for the pure fact that you need a card in your hand, quite like Dragon Dark, that allows you to just discard it to put a card into the graveyard. There's also times that when you have the ability to discard it, as long as it doesn't need to go to the graveyard as cost, you then get the benefit, if you are under your own shifter or your opponent's shifter, to gain additional effects off the back of them. Now, keeping in mind that when you do activate these, they are only once per turn, so you can't use the discard and the draw in the same turn. But the idea is that if you put this on the board and it leaves the field and gets banished, you'll get the secondary effect rather than just the first one. So sometimes it's really important just to get you that light in the graveyard, or in this particular version, you might need a different type. Then for the main normal summons of the deck, I've gone with two Batteryman Solar and two Aloof Lupine. Now, this is kind of just to show that I'm always torn when I'm trying to put these together for this particular deck. Batteryman Solar is obviously ideal because on normal or special, it allows you to send a Thunder directly from the deck to the grave. Now, it doesn't send as cost, so even if you are under Shifter, that will then allow you to basically send a Dark, Raw, or Hawk from the deck to the grave, which will ultimately end up getting banished, which could then ultimately get you the second effect of Solar to give you a token. However, the issue with Solar is it can get hit with Ash Blossom, Imperm, and Veiler, whereas Aloof Lupine can only be hit with two of those in the form of Veiler and, of course, with an Imperm. On top of that, because Aloof Lupine does banish as cost, it allows you to pretty much trigger off one of your effects as a guarantee. Unfortunately, Aloof Lupine is only on normal summons. Specifically, you banish a monster from your hand as cost to then banish a monster from the deck with the same type as that monster. So it's how you can trigger off two of your Thunder Dragon effects in the same turn. However, is the downside that it needs to be normaled, and if it does get stopped, you'll still get the ability of using Raw, but it can also get ashed as well. So you do need to be careful in the form. What I mean by that is Raw can get ashed. If you were to go normal summon Aloof Lupine, banish Raw as cost, resolve the Aloof Lupine, you need to make sure that you chain block your Raw by making something like your Dark or your Hawk as chaining do, that even those can then get ashed. The other benefit of Aloof Lupine in this particular build is we are playing Allure of Darkness, so if you do open up Solar and Aloof with Allure and you're like, which one should I go for? You can go for Solar and not need to worry about it so much, because then you can allure away the Lupine. Then, of course, we are playing two of the Mental Tuna. I'm also going to put the other card that we are playing alongside it, which, of course, is Triple E-Telly. So I feel this is actually an amazing card for this deck, and it does actually really benefit the strategy that I've tried to go with this build. So you get to only activate one of the following effects, but you can banish up to one light and or up to one dark from your hand and or graveyard to increase or decrease this card's level by the exact number banished until the end of the turn. Or you can target up to two of your banished monsters, one light and one dark, and return them to the graveyard, and then increase or decrease this card's level by that exact number. So the best thing about that is you can make this a level 5 tuner if you want to. You can make it a level 1 tuner, which unlocks some great synchro plays for your extra deck. The benefit of a card like this is even if you are under your own shifter, you can put some of your cards back into the graveyard, or of course if you aren't under shifter and you want to make sure you can clear out your graveyard to be able to activate a second shifter, you can then use this to banish the shifter and the other monster, and that will then allow you to de-shifter your opponent again, as long as you have an E-Tellied to get this guy out. Really, really kind of cool card. I love what it kind of adds to the deck. And like I said, the aspect or the route of deck that I was going for with this is that I wanted to utilize, rather than the Chaos Engine, the Nemesis Engine. Now, I loved it when we first got this engine all the way back in Eternity Code. I really did enjoy it. And this is one of the reasons, or a speculated reason, as to why we don't believe a Thunder Dragon Colossus can come back, even though the OCG have it anyway. But the fact of this one is that it is a Thunder monster. It allows you to target one of your banished monsters, except itself, to special summon this card from the hand, and if you do, shuffle that target into the deck. You can target one of your banished Nemesis monsters, except itself, and add it to the hand. Now, the reason this is so powerful is because it's a Thunder effect that activates in the hand. You activate it, you banish it, you summon it, you tribute it off, you bring out your own Colossus. Broken. I would love Thunder Dragon Colossus to come back just for that exact reason. Not to mention the fact that it will also boost back Thunder Dragons very nicely, but it is very, very cool. Then, of course, you've got Flag, which can help you get out your corridor, and, of course, your Arch Nemesis, Ishantos. Always get that wrong. But the idea is that you can, and what I would highly consider is putting in Reaper in the extra deck, because then you control exactly what this is. But this must be special summoned from your hand by banishing 3 monsters with different types from the graveyard and or face up on the field. It can't be destroyed by card effect. You declare 1 monster type on the field, destroy all monsters on the field with that exact type, and until the end of the next turn, neither player can special summon monsters with that type. So this is obviously going to be great in matches where your opponent is playing mono types, or they're playing types where they need to focus, Pyro. So what this will allow you to do, which is why it's so good if you do end up getting a Nemesis Flag on the board, or more so if your opponent puts a Pyro on the board, you can activate your Arch Nemesis, nuke the entire board of Pyros, and then lock your opponent out of Pyros. The reason it's good for going like your first turn is if you do make Reaper Donkus, you summon this to the zone that Reaper Donkus points to, you can make this a Pyro, use this effect to destroy it. It can then be utilised for fairies against the Voiceless Voice matchup, and when you're doing this, is you're actually putting a 3000 attack boss monster on the board that is going to lock your opponent down from a particular type for that entire turn. So when it comes back to you, you've already got a guarantee of a 3k hitting into your opponent, not to mention whatever else you've been able to add to it as well. It does have a little bit of a clash because you do need monsters in the graveyard to banish for your Shifter, but keep in mind, Shifter is a spellcaster, so it can also be acted or used as a different type for Arch Nemesis to banish, which is why it's really kind of cool and does give you a couple of different options should you want to try it out. Speaking of which, we are main decking Dimension Shifter. Now this is the one big difference, that if you were to play the Chaos version of this deck, that is where your Nemesis Engine comes into play and your D-Shifters. You would take these out, and that's where, of course, your White Wyvern, Black Collapse, Valkyrie, Chaos Giant, not Chaos Giant, your Lavionair, your Chaos Emperor Dragon, Chaos Space, Lubellions, you name it, that's where this engine can kind of come into play. We're also playing Triple Super Poly to help us break boards. You can play a couple of different targets, but again, another thing that this really helps with is it allows you to break your opponent's board while also being under your own Shifter. So you're making sure that if you were taking away the graveyard, you're benefiting it from it as much as possible. True Allure of Darkness, like Allure into Dark has never been so good. Or Raw, sorry, has never been so good. 2 Thunder Dragon Fusion. This is a 41 card deck, so you can very easily cut this down to 1 and be absolutely fine with it. It's just one of the ones that if you hard open it, it's not the end of the world, and you can banish it from the graveyard to search yourself out a Thunder monster the turn after it's been used. One reasoning, we're playing so many different levels in this one. So you're playing obviously 6s in Shifters, 4 in Corridor, 2 in Flag. You've got 5s and 6s in your Thunder Dragons. You've got 3s in your Tuna. You got Lords. Foolish Burial, Gold Sark, Cool Bite, and then Talents. Again, 41 card deck, you can cut this out if you want to. If anything, I want to try and bump this up to 2, but that will then come down to the strategy that I choose to play this deck going forward. Sometimes I might want Instant Fusion if I've got a bit more flexibility in the extra deck, because that will give me another type that can be utilised to be banished from the graveyard for your Arch Nemesis. It really does come down to your playstyle. So apart from Reaper Donkus, which you can very easily add in for something like a Sky Crisis Typhoon if you wanted to, the other cards that we are playing for our fusion monsters, of course, are the 1 Thunder Dragon Titan. Now in the grind game, you might want to consider putting in a second Titan, just because then you still have the ability to spin back your first Titan to get into your second Titan. You just need to have a legal target to do so. I've decided to go down more of a Chaos Engine in the extra deck for the Beast, the Archfiend, and the Angel, just because you have that ability to, more so for these two, manipulate your levels to get into either of these, and they just become very nice kind of consistency mini boss monsters. And then of course your Angel pretty much speaks for itself. You're playing lights, you're playing darks, you can manipulate any of them to become a Tuna in order to make this. You can use it by using a light and a dark, so you'll gain both the effects. Whereas when you're looking at your Chaos Beast and your Archfiend, the only card you can use is your Mental Tuna. But because this is your light Tuna, it covers what you need, and then all it needs is non-Tuna dark monsters. Ooh, get there eventually. Your Chaos Beast, of course, is a level 6, so that requires your Mental Tuna to be reduced to a level 1 plus a dark, or it can also be buffed up to a 5, including your Matrix, in order to go and not your Matrix, sorry, your... You would have to only use your dark monsters. So this is when you can utilize your aloof lupines, you can utilize your raws and your darks. So very, very kind of cool to kind of utilize both of those in order to manipulate levels and get where you need to go. So if any card or cards has been banished this turn, it gains 1,000 attack, which by the time you've used it with your Mental Tuna, that will have happened. On top of that as well, you can target one of your banished light or dark monsters and add it to the hand, and then during your main phase, set the turn a card was sent to the graveyard, banish a light and dark monster from the hand and or graveyard to special summon this card from the graveyard. So this is probably one of the ones you could sacrifice for your Reaper Donkers if you want to go down that route. Chaos Archfiend, I actually really like this card. I think the artwork is badass. So if any card or cards has been banished this turn, it gains 2,000 attacks, it becomes a base of 4,500, and it can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. Also, banish any monster destroyed by battle with this card. If this card in his own control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you get to special summon a Chaos Synchro monster from the extra deck, except itself. And then Angel speaks for itself. Typhoon, pretty straightforward and simple on that one. Super body targets in Mud Dragon and Garura. Of course, you can play Starving Venom if you want to. You've got plenty of different options if you need to for the environment you're taking the deck to. Then we've got one Link Kuriboh, followed up by the one Relinquish Animar as your go first and go second. Link 1 options. Now, obviously, the only ways you're going to be able to get into these is off of the back of your Matrix, but it's just one of them ones where you will find yourself in a position where you just normal summon the Matrix, link off into Link Kuriboh or Relinquish Animar, and then you get to banish this from the graveyard with one of your other monster effects, and then search out another copy, and you're basically just thinning out that way. Again, either one of these could be tagged out for your Reaper Donkus. I'm just showing you different variants that you can utilize, or different options you can utilize. Staples in the form of IP and SP, followed up by Dart the Dark Charmer, which can then lead you into stuff like Saruja. Topology Zeroboros, I actually really like this as a good option, because this one, you can't summon or set monsters to any of the extra monster zones that it points to. It gains 200 attack for each banished card, which is what you're going to be doing throughout the entire strategy of the deck. And then if another monster is special to a zone it points to, or a zone a link monster points to be specific, while this monster is on the field, you banish all cards on the field. And then once per turn during the standby phase of the next turn, after this card is banished by its own effect, you special summon this banished card. So when you're banishing your Thunder Dragons off the board, you're going to gain additional effects, whether they be resources, whether they be reshuffling your hand, whether they be summoning from the board, you name it, you're getting different options. And then, of course, you've got your Underworld Goddess, pretty much just to help you deal with towers. Like, there is Raid Raptors running around, and if you're going to be taking this to an event where Raid Raptors are going to be there, you're going to want to consider this. So it can be very, very helpful. But again, Reaper Donkus, Cool Wing Beast, that's it, GG, game over. So a lot to kind of consider. This is just like the way that I quite liked playing Thunder Dragons. I get it, the whole Dragon Link kind of aspect, but I feel that the Dragon Link aspect does get a little bit, you know, samey after a while. And I do like the Nemesis Engine, and I like the fact that I can utilize the Chaos Angels, Archfiends, and Beast, which is a really kind of cool aspect for me for the deck. Anyway, that is it for the entire profile. Something a little bit different, like this card. So glad I found this one. Okay, like sometimes there's commons you don't even realize come out, and then you're just stumbling across your bulk one day, and you're like, oh damn, this card's great when you're trying to build a Thunder Dragon deck or something else of the same fun. Anyway, I hope this is giving you a couple of ideas on your own build. If you do have any questions, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.